Hi everyone, thank you for coming to my online lecture. Today we'll discuss about mass media. The topic for today's discussion is media representation of social diversity. In our society, we have many different group of people who have different social backgrounds and social identities. The examples of such social backgrounds are gender, race and ethnicity, nationality, class, age, living location, and physical ability. Media content and programs like news, drama, film, advertising, video games gives us information and images about these social groups. Based on the information and image the media provide us, we become to know these social groups and form our opinion. Then how do the media portray different groups in our society? The media portray different social groups equally and fairly or not? How do media portrayals affect our perceptions and opinions and beliefs about these groups? These are the questions we're going to answer in this class. To answer these questions, I want to introduce one of the media concepts, which is called media representation. Media representation is the way how the media portray or describe or depict the aspects of society, such as an event, issue, individual, group of people, and place. Further, to see how well media represent diverse social groups, we need two more concepts about media representation. The first concept is under and overrepresentation. Under and overrepresentation concept related to the question whether media include or exclude different groups equally or unequally. The second concept is misrepresentation. This is about whether media portray different groups fairly or unfairly. The examples of unfair representation is negative representation and stereotypical representation. So over and under representation ideas such that media can either overrepresent or over-include or overemphasize or underrepresent or underemphasize a particular social group based on their gender, race, age, and other social identities and backgrounds. So I'm going to use gender as an example to explain this overrepresentation and underrepresentation concept. So we can think about two different kinds of the world. The first world is the real world, and the second world is the media world. Media world means the world portrayed or depicted by the media. So thinking about the gender in our real world, in our society, we have almost equal number of males and females, right? Then what about the media world? In the media, males and females appear in almost equal number or not, is the question. So what do you think? Do you think media include almost equal number of males and females? Okay, so media scholars have studied this topic about over and underrepresentation about gender. So the table you see on the screen is from the study that examined gender gap in TV drama in the United States. In the table, you can see some information. So in the first column, you can see the TV drama characters appearing in TV drama. Okay. In the second row, you see the main characters, number of main characters. Lastly, we can see the speaking time by different characters in drama. So in the second column, use the total number of characters by different category. So in total, according to this study, there are 1,269 characters, and then 455 main characters. And then each character spoke about 1,284 seconds in each drama. In the third and fifth column, you see the number of characters and their speaking time by gender. So third column, you see the male characters number, and fifth column, you see female characters numbers and their speaking time. So I'll give you about 1 second. So please consider yourself whether male and female are equally included in the US dramas. Okay, we can start. Okay, so what did you find? Did you find any underrepresentation or overrepresentation patterns? You must find, right? So as you see from the table, so out of all the characters, male characters made up 63%. The other hand, female characters made up just 37%. So what is this idea? This is overrepresentation of males in TV dramas and underrepresentation of females in the TV dramas, right? So women are women are underrepresented and men are overrepresented in drama. So this situation or this tendency can be found among main characters as well, right? So there are more male main characters than female main characters. So this tendency is also found in their speaking time. In other words, males are more likely to speak. They more speak than female in the drama. So this study, it clearly shows, underrepresentation of females in the drama, although there are almost equal number of males and females in our real society. So this tendency of underrepresentation and overrepresentation by gender can be found in other types of media as well. So here, in this screen, you see the kind of gender gap, the difference between the number of males and females appearing, in this case, in news stories. So here, you see the summary result about the number of the characters, number of the males and females appearing in the news stories. Okay, so in the media overall, you see women 41% and 57%. So in other words, once again, like in the drama, males are overrepresented and females are underrepresented, even in news stories. So we can say there's a gender gap in terms of media representation of gender and two different groups, males and females. So here, we can see another types of underrepresentation or overrepresentation of gender. Okay, so think about TV news program. You may watch, TV news programs on TV, right? On TV news program, we can see male anchors and announcers and female anchors and female announcers, right? Although, they do similar kind of jobs and similar kind of tasks, they may have different roles within TV news shows or programs. So according to the study, male anchors or male announcers more likely to read first story on TV news program, okay? And they are more likely to read more important news stories than female announcers and anchors. So from these studies, we can clearly see media tend to overrepresent males, include more males, regardless of media type, whether they are drama or they are news programs. Okay. On the other hand, they underrepresent females in media programs. So it can be unfair representation of gender by the media. So that's the characteristics of media program and content. Then how such media portrayals of gender may affect audience beliefs and ideas about gender. That's another question. This question is about media influence on audience. Okay, so here I raise this question. How do you think the underrepresentation of women in the media, like a drama or news, as you saw, from the previous study affect the audience or our beliefs and opinions about gender? Once again, I'm going to give you 1 minute to think about how media's underrepresentation of women will affect our idea about women. Okay, on the other hand, how the media's the overrepresentation of males affect our perception about male. Okay, so you can start. All right, so what is your answer to this question? But definitely, news media may affect, our perception, our ideas, or our opinions about gender, right? So according to study, we consume used media which underrepresent females and overrepresent, males, over and over again, repeatedly, is going to affect our perception about gender roles and gender stereotypes. For instance, we may believe that females are less important than male. We may believe that females should listen rather than speak. We may believe that females should be more passive than active. Okay, that's the idea of media influence on audience. So this idea of over or underrepresentation can happen in combination with certain social group and certain social issues or idea. So I'm going to use race, social group, and poverty, social issue, to explain how the social group and social issue can be combined together to affect our perception of diverse social groups. Okay, so here I raise this question. How do different races appear in relation to poverty in media? So what do you think? In other words, a certain racial group appear more often than other social groups about poverty. So again, I'm going to use a study that look at this question. So this study basically compares, once again, real world and media world. Media world, once again, the world portrayed or depicted by the media. So as you can see, the title of this figure, this study compared the percent of true poor in the US society. The information about the number of true poor comes from US Census. On the other hand, we have information in the study about the poverty in media, in this case, magazine, by race. So here we have two different colors of bars, right? So like, here we have blue bar, and here we have yellow bar. So blue bar shows the percent of poor people in the US population by race. On the other hand, the yellow bar shows the percent of poor people in magazines, in media world. Okay, so we can directly compare the real world and the media world. Then we can see whether media overrepresent or underrepresent a certain racial group's poverty. So I'm going to give one more minute. So please think about, how race related to poverty in the media. Okay, did you find something? You must have found something, right? So here, what can you say? What can you say about over or underrepresentation of poverty by race? So let's look at white people first. Okay, here we have, white people. So in the real world, in actual American society, white people make up 45% of poverty, poor people. Okay, but in the media, it is underemphasized or underrepresented because white people make up only 33% of the poor. Okay, so we can conclude that underrepresentation of white poverty here. Then what about black people? What about black people? In the real world, black people make up 27% of the poor in population. On the other hand, in magazines, like, media world, they make up 49% of the poor. So we can say black poverty is overemphasized, overrepresented in the US media, in this case, magazine. Then what about Hispanic? Hispanic poverty is underrepresented by 5%. And lastly, there are no poor people, no poor Asian people in magazine. Okay, so here we can see kind of mismatch between the reality and the media representation. So such and such, okay. Then what do you think? The such over or underrepresentation of the poverty of racial groups are going to affect your perception or your opinion about the people, especially minority group people, like the black people. That's the question. Okay. Once again, I'll give you 1 minute how the especially overrepresentation of the black poverty affect people's perception about the black people. Okay. Okay, so I believe you may have your answer, right? So basically, we can imagine that overrepresentation of black poverty will make us believe that black people are poor, although in reality there are more white poor people. So in other words, media representation connecting or overrepresenting poverty with black people can cause certain perception about the poverty about black people, making us believe black people are more likely to be poor. So when media represent different social groups unequally, unfairly, what happened to media audience? That's the concept about media influence and effects. Okay, and how does media representation affect audience beliefs about diverse social groups? So the conclusion is like this: media can affect our beliefs and understanding about different social groups. So like, beliefs about gender role. So like, we may believe females are less important than males if we consume the media which underrepresent females over and over again. And we may develop beliefs that poor people will be poorer than more poorer than reality. Okay, may have stereotypes about black people. So I want to conclude today's class, this short lecture. So as you see from the example studies, media have been criticized for unequally, unfairly portraying certain social groups. Especially, they tend to give more unequal, unfair representation to less powerful groups in our society, such as female or racial and ethnic minorities. As such, unequal representation can cause people's negative stereotypes about those less powerful group people. And ultimately, such negative stereotypes caused by media's poor representation can cause negative outcomes like an unfair, unequal treatment, and exclusion of those groups of people in our society. Therefore, we need to more carefully analyze media content and program to avoid such negative influence. And even we should ask for the media represent diverse social groups more equally and more fairly. This is all for me today, and I really appreciate paying attention to my lecture, and I hope to see you at AIU. Thank you.